And get started. Do we have anybody on the phone?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, nice to hear you, Commissioner Niles.
Yes, indeed.
Anybody else on the phone today?
James Darrell Page.
I heard Mr. Page, and I heard Mr. Mills. Anybody else? Okay, so we have Mr. Niles, Mr. Page, and Mr. Mills on the phone. And we do have a quorum, since we looked it up and make sure 5 is a quorum. So thank you guys for being here today. Hopefully you guys have been having a good couple of months in the new year. I know for me it's been busy as most of y'all, but for the most part it's been very positive and very good. So I hope you guys have experienced the same thing. We will move to approval of the proposed agenda. I'll take a motion for that.
Make that motion.
Have a motion by Terry.
Second.
Second right here. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Next we'll have approval of the meeting minutes. I do have 2 minor changes that I'd like for you guys to consider. If you flip to the very last page, right above new business, it states he appreciates the DCS board moving diligently on this because it is important that we do have rules on this. I'd like to strike on this, and in that sentence right after rules, the very next sentence states this is one of the things that we have been asked to do, comma, provide additional oversight we needed. I would like to strike that sentence and replace it with a sentence that says the same thing, but it's just a little more fluid. It said, I would like to replace it with additional oversight is one of the areas we've been asked to consider. So those are my 2 corrections I'd like the board to consider. Are there others? Hearing no other changes, I would take a motion to approve the minutes as amended by those 2 items I just stated. We have a move. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Niles. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. The rules are approved. The minutes are approved. Having said that, I'd like to call Scott up to give the commissioner's report. Michael and I spoke this week. I'm sure Scott may say something, but Michael would love to be here with us, but he's tending to some family business, so keep him in your thoughts. But a very good conversation with the commissioner, and Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. And Michael is attending some personal business. His wife actually had surgery this past week. She's recovering and okay. We are actually keeping Candy in our thoughts and prayers because she's got Michael home with her all week. And I know how it is to spend a week with him, so we feel bad for him. But no, he does pass on his apologies for not being able to be here. Also, today, Harris Childers will report out for Mike Kraft. Mike Kraft had emergency appendectomy on Saturday, I believe, and so he will be out for a couple weeks as well. So
That's the best excuse you can come up with.
yeah, exactly. So we keep him in your thoughts and prayers as well. But he's home, recovering, and feeling much better now. On a more serious note, one of the first things that I wanted to report out and share with you is, we spend a lot of time as an agency talking about our evidence-based programs and our evidence-based practices, as well as rehabilitating the offenders in the community. And sometimes we get a reminder, like we did last Friday, about the dangers that our officers face on a daily basis when they go out and supervise offenders in the field. Last Friday, we had an officer go to an offender's residence. It was actually a trailer park in Eastman. As he approached the house, he heard the offender call out, "Who is it?" identified himself as community supervision officer. The offender was then heard running through the house and flushing toilets. There just happened to be a deputy driving down the road at the same time. He flagged the deputy down. The deputy approached the house. The offender left the trailer. They chased him in a vehicle to a church nearby. The offender turned around and started shooting at both our officer and the deputy. Those 2 officers returned fire. The offender was hit in the head and abdomen. He's currently in critical condition, not expected to survive. Both of the officer and our officer and the deputy were not harmed. But it's a reminder that every day those officers face dangers. And I just today got an email from David about an officer that did a search at a home that found, nearly $500,000 worth of weapons in the home. So just a reminder for our staff to stay vigilant when they're out in the field every day. The second thing I'd like to update you on is legislation. Previously we reported out that we didn't have any agency legislation. However, since our last meeting, it's been brought to our attention that in the misdemeanor probation, there are 2 conflicting statutes. There's Title 42 and Title 35. Title 35 is the post statute that states that any county or municipal authority that has a probation officer, has a probation office, is required to be mandated through post. Title 42 states, as the DCS board rules, that there's a 40-hour basic training required for all officers, but there's no post requirement. So there's 2 different standards that are being applied here, one for municipal probation and one for private probation. So we have worked with post as well as state court judges and the governor's office to come up with a recommendation to make both of the Title 35 and Title 42 say the same thing, and essentially the DCS board rules that there's a 40-hour requirement for basic training for all officers unless the county, at the county level or municipal level, wants to have arrest authority for their officers. If they're seeking arrest authority for their officers, then they would have to go either through a mandate or through our basic training to be post-certified. So the post staff were good with those recommendations, as well as the governor's office. It's currently in Ledge Council being drafted. Once it's drafted, we'll find a sponsor and we'll carry that as agency legislation. So I'm just looking for a small change in the law to make those two titles be, saying the same thing, essentially, that they're both requiring the 40-hour training. Any questions on that?
I assume that's just for information purposes, Scott. You don't need this board to...
No, it'll be a change in law once the legislation's drafted and passed, so. Also, we have, of course, House Bill... Sorry.
I just got a question of curiosity. I don't know a lot about private probation officers, but do you know what percentage of them are actually post-certified?
On the private side, they cannot have arrest powers. So we're only talking about, the change would be that as a municipal or county probation system, if they wanted arrest powers, they would have to get post-certified. Right now, the way it's worded, 35 says that any county or municipal probation system, they must be post-certified. And there are counties that don't wish to have arrest powers, they just want to provide the probation services, and the sheriff's department would be the, serve the arrest powers. House Bill 34, to my knowledge, is still in committee and has not had a hearing yet. The state court judges also weighed in on the misdemeanor probation legislation and are very supportive. From a budget perspective, of course, FY17 has been passed both the House Senate with no changes to our budget. FY18 passed out of the House this morning, no changes in our budget as well. Recently, we're still waiting on the Criminal Justice Reform Council final report and recommendations. Once those are released, we, of course, as an agency, will start working on implementing some of those recommendations. CSG has already reached out to us. We've had several meetings with the Council on State Governments as our technical assistance provider for those recommendations. We will be meeting with them next month to start a strategic planning session on the majority of those recommendations. So the last I heard, they expected the report to be out either this week or early next week. So we're hoping to hear something soon on the Criminal Justice Reform Council recommendations. Wanted to bring to your attention also that the GPAC's conference will be this next month, March 1st through 3rd in Brasstown. If anybody here is interested in attending, certainly let us know and we can make those arrangements. From a training perspective, next week we have the Management Essentials Training Program starting on Monday. It's a week-long program. We have approximately 20 or 30 staff attending that training, as well as we currently have a post-IT training going on, and on the 27th we will start our next basic training program. And that, Mr. Chairman, that is all I have as far as updates, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mauer?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
you know my usual question that I ask almost every board meeting. Y'all don't have to laugh in my face.
You're not here, so it's not in your face, sir.
Yeah.
Is it
But,
go ahead.
the incident that you was telling us about, did the officer have that was in that incident, were you wearing a body camera?
Unfortunately, he was not. We have, what is it, near 240 body cameras deployed currently. We are currently working on purchasing additional body cameras, but that officer had not yet been provided a body camera.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Mr. Miles. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I only have a couple of topics to discuss, and then we'll be available for any questions. But yesterday was a very, very successful day. Director Cagle, we had a meeting with all of our coordinating chiefs as well as their counterparts with DFACs down at Gypstick. And a lot of good collaboration took place, information exchanged, and I encourage the entire staff that this collaboration goes all the way to the top, and that we don't need to let it, as unfortunately oftentimes occurs, and a new initiative dies on the vine, that we need their assistance on the ground level to continue the communication and collaboration and help each other do our jobs better. So very, very good meeting, and we will continue to keep you updated on that. Also, on February the 1st, we had a very successful joint operation which involved a collaboration between DCS, DNR, State Patrol, GBI, APD, and the Sheriff's Department in Metro Atlanta, where we actually successfully served 19 warrants on outstanding absconders. So that was a good collaboration as well. With that being said, unless there are any questions, that's all I had to report this morning.
Any questions for Mr. Morris? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Harris. I'm jumping Harris.
Good morning. This week we're holding our fifth cohort for the enhanced supervision training, and this one is a train the trainer session, and where we took the ones who demonstrated an exceptional ability in the previous training and are training them to train for the future. Reentry Services is having a Healing Communities training today in Riverdale, and they have a stakeholder meeting also today in Douglas County and one next week in Clayton County. Monday, we will be hosting the Florida Corrections officials at the Day Reporting Center in Thomasville. They're touring it. And then the Thomasville DRC graduation is scheduled for next Tuesday. We have 5 graduates for the addiction certification program with graduation scheduled for next week. And that will be in Forsyth. And Alabama Parole will be visiting soon to take a look at our electronic monitoring program. They're getting ready to start one of their own, so they want to see us in action. And that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Here's just more of an education for me personally. How are we doing still on Lee State Prison? Are we still partnering with you guys well
Yes.
on that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Appreciate that. Barbara, misdemeanor probation oversight.
Morning, Chairman, board members. I would like to thank David publicly for inviting me to the DFACS meeting. I actually was there, and I did get some phone numbers, and people were very interested in doing some collaboration with misdemeanor too. So as a result of our 2016 audits, we did provide you with the top 10 findings as requested. These findings were to set a standard and expectations for this year, and as a result of the new laws that were in effect for 2015. So this year we'll be looking for duplication of these findings and other violations, along with utilizing these findings as training topics. And real quick, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Lewis, if you would stand up. He has done an amazing job gathering information from the providers and trying to develop our training unit within the misdemeanor probation arena. Our fourth quarter report is completed with the exception of 4 providers, and I will be sending out letters to them certified this week. We can report that there are 192,331 active probationers under misdemeanor probation. Supervision. We distinctly requested the difference between people and cases because in the past there was a conflict of that. So there were 237 cases that were reported. So out of the active probationers, the actual people, there were 111,729 probationers actively reporting. There were 22,948 on pay-only status, 17,972 on admin or non-reporting status, and 39,682 under warrant status. So we finally got a good grasp on our numbers for this year. We currently have 81 providers, and 28 of those are private, with 53 being governmental. We have all of these providers scheduled for an audit to be completed this year for 2017. The unit is also currently working on a few revisions from the board rules that were passed in the last meeting, and that will be brought up. We're going to fix a couple Scribner's errors and a few areas where it needed some clarification, so that will be brought up through the administrative process to you in the future. And that is all I have, unless you have any questions.
I have a question. I don't understand. What do you mean by the 32,000 on warrant status? What does that mean?
There, 39,682 are currently have a warrant on them.
That's 39,000.
Yes, sir. And those are people, not cases, because we just determined the difference.
Mr. Chair, could I add a question?
Yes, sir.
Out of that 39,000, how many of those are sitting in jails that we hadn't served the warrants on?
That I do not know that right now, but I can definitely look into that and get that answer to you.
And the only reason is, Mr. Chair, is the impact that will have on the local jails if we start issuing warrants on those individuals and serving them. I used to be a jail commander, I'm sorry.
That's great insight, Avery. Thank you.
Yeah, but those wouldn't be sitting in jail, those are active warrants.
Yeah, they're active
So they're not
warrants.
sitting in
So I can't, I don't know how many have been served on those currently, but I can definitely look into it. But those are active warrants.
But if you decided to do a sweep and start trying to hammer down the 39,000, yeah, it would have a definite impact on jails.
Definitely. Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Neville, would there be a chance that we could get a copy of that report that you just provided?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Neville says she'd be happy to provide that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Neville.
Thank you.
Barbara, one follow-up question to get an understanding of the total amount. These are private probationers. You would add each of those categories together and give you the total amount on.
Yes, sir. So yeah, if you added all of the actively reporting, the pay only, the admin, and the warrants, it would equal the 192,331 active probationers.
Could you repeat the total number of providers you said there were?
We have 81 providers, and 28 are private and 53 are governmental.
And is there a maximum of how many a single provider can serve?
Each provider has a contract, and it does state the staffing levels in that, depending on the circuit or the area that they're in.
Thank you.
Typically, Barbara, you don't have multiple providers in one area, is that right? Typically, you have one provider per municipality area?
Typically, yes.
So that's typically how you see it. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Thomas?
Hi, good morning. Glad to be back with you. I missed your last meeting as I was at a Chiefs meeting, I think, with Harris last time. There was a DCS Board meeting, so I'm glad to be with you today. A couple updates that I can provide for you is Like Barbara, we were pleased to have been invited to the DCS DFACS collaborative meeting. We are looking at a grant right now to write so we can really better support the officers and the DFACS workers that are going into these homes, equipping them with the knowledge that we've learned from the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Report to see how we can better provide services to all family members living in those homes. So we're still in the drafting phase of that and looking forward to a conversation with some folks from DFACS next week to include them in this grant. I appreciate that Barbara has invited me to speak at the CPACS conference that'll be happening in March. I'll have an opportunity to address the participants there on what we've learned from Fatality Review Report, lethality assessments, what officers should look for, what are the resources and referrals that are available in their community. So I'm appreciative of that and look forward to being there. A couple of pieces of legislation that the Commission is working on for this session. Both of these are being carried by our Commission member, Representative Ballinger, and she's working on a name change legislation. So House Bill 279. This particular piece of legislation is, well, you hear this a lot. It's a simple bill, right? It's just a simple little bill. But this one actually is. It's a common sense bill. The current statute says that if you want to change your name, there's a publishing requirement that must be met in order for that name change to happen. We had a constituent bring to us an issue where he served on the board for a local Habitat for Humanity, where they were trying to publish the name of a person that was going to be receiving a home from Habitat in order for the land transfer and all those things to take place for her. The publishing of that was going to jeopardize her safety as she had left her abuser. And so he pursued changing her name, helping her to change her name. And then again, there was a publishing requirement made for that. So what this bill would allow, it would allow a judge who is doing a name change petition to do that under seal in the chamber so that we don't have to meet those publishing requirements. So that's one particular bill that we're working on this session. The second bill we're working on is just a cleanup bill as a request from the governor's office for the commission statute. Currently, the commission, we have 37 members, which is one of the largest boards and commissions in our state, and we have 2-year term limits. And I will say this governor has done a really thorough job of appointing folks every 2 years. They're a little fatigued, and so they're moving that to 3-year terms. And we're appreciative of that because it gives us an opportunity to have a longer time to spend with our commission members from across the state, and would allow them to serve 2 term limits, so a total of 6 years. So that's the legislative change that we're working on with Representative Ballinger. That's House Bill 303. That bill passed out of committee yesterday and expected to move on to the House floor for a vote next week. The House bill that I spoke about earlier, name change 279, has not had a committee hearing yet, but we expect that it will. We had a successful Stop Violence Against Women Day event, which I think Jenny shared with all of you last time she was here. We had almost 300 participants at that event where we were able to talk with our local representatives and senators about the importance of ensuring that our laws are victim-centered and holding offenders accountable. So I'd be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Director Thomas. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right. Any old business? See no old business. Any new business? See no new business. Based on that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Have a motion? Second. Have a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, got some eyes on that opposed, I think. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate y'all's support.